Hello, welcome to episode 6 of the Inspiration Station podcast. This is your host, Carson Keller, and today we are speaking to an individual who embodies the spirit of ambition. Our guest has discovered the power of collaboration, personal agency, and the transformative potential that lies within welcoming new ideas. Get ready to embrace the entrepreneurial mindset as we ride along the Innovation Express. Here we go. Hello and welcome back to the Inspiration Station podcast. My name is Carson and I am going to be your host today. Before we get into our lovely episode, I'm going to introduce our guest. So without further ado, here we go. Get ready to meet a remarkable individual who embodies the spirit of ambition and unwavering determination. In this episode of the Inspiration Station podcast, we have the pleasure of introducing a recent computer engineering graduate from Simon Fraser University. Their dedication to studies and exceptional academic performance earned them the honor of being selected as a speaker at their recent graduation ceremony, a testament to their exceptional leadership and communication skills. But their journey doesn't stop here. In addition to academic pursuits, they have also made a significant impact on the world of sports. As a valuable member of the SFU varsity golf team, their love for competition and drive for success has propelled them to new heights in the world of athletics. As a co-founder of One Iota Performance, they have embraced the entrepreneurial spirit and are carving a path towards becoming a leader in their field. Their ability to work collaboratively with others and their unwavering commitment to exploring new ideas and solving complex problems are the driving forces behind their entrepreneurial journey. Through this, they were able to dive into entrepreneurship as a past participant of the Charles Chang Institute's e-co-op program. Our guests' exceptional talents and dedication have not gone unnoticed. They were recognized as the winner of the Top Idea Prize at the 2022 Coast Capital Venture Prize ceremony, and they have also been honored with the Top 25 Under 25 award. Join us as we delve into Ryan's inspiring journey, a journey defined by well-defined goals, unwavering passion, and a relentless drive to become a leader in all aspects of life. Discover the power of collaboration, personal agency, and the transformative potential that lies within embracing new ideas and challenges. So, without further ado, passengers of the Innovation Express, say hello to Ryan Stolys.
Thank you very much for the welcome. It's a flattering welcome. It gives me, I better say something inspirational in this today. Cause
I mean, it is the Inspiration Station podcast.
Absolutely. Got to live up to that intro. So.
Welcome. It's a pleasure to have you.
Thanks so much for having me. Looking forward to it.
Yeah. I guess before we get into learning more about you, is there anything that you want to add to your lovely bio that Krysta wrote for us?
No, I don't think so. I guess the only thing, a lot of that bio, I think is kind of to my time at SFU. I think I grew up kind of in the Toronto area and moved out here, and definitely kind of been a victim of kind of moving away from Ontario to Vancouver area and probably not moving back. So it's been pretty sweet being out here.
Let's dive into some questions, I guess. So, I mentioned in your bio that you are the co-founder of One Iota Performance. Do you care to elaborate a little bit about what One Iota is all about?
For sure, yeah. So I think the company as a whole has been, generally focused on this idea around helping people to get a little bit better every day, and the idea of one iota better every day. And iota kind of is a Greek letter meaning a very small amount. And so this idea of kind of consistent, constant effort that compounds over time. And if you can, help people accomplish that, then it will kind of grow and you'll see results over time. And it's not necessarily just kind of quick fixes to things, but it's more consistent and constant efforts. And so the company's been focused in the golf space around helping athletes track and understand their games. And I think kind of more long-term and kind of where we're headed in the near future as well is kind of more focused on the mind as well. And that's kind of been kind of the initial driving factor of the company was how can we understand your mind and how what parts of that actually impact performance, and then help someone apply suggestions and recommendations to actually improve that piece. And again, around that idea of kind of consistent effort over time.
That's really interesting. I'm curious to know where the intersection between golf and the other pieces of athletics lie within One Iota Performance. Because I know that you do have the 4 components of performance that you sort of research in your company, those being the physical, technical, tactical, and mental. And I know that you do place a very heavy emphasis on the mental side. So where does that intersection take place, and what sort of drives that?
For sure, I think it's a bias that kind of comes out of just the level of sport as well as the sport that we're in. Obviously, when you kind of get to the importance of each of those four components of performance vary over time depending on your level of, right? I think if anyone's picked up a sport the first time, like whether you picked up tennis or stepped on the ice to play hockey, it's like the most important thing was just learning how to actually swing the racket or skate, right? Like the technical component of the sport is almost always the most dominant thing. And along with that is the physical component, right? Like I guess if you're going to go play hockey, being able to stand up and support your own weight and exercise is the first component to that. So there's elements that kind of grow depending on the level of sport you get to. And as you get to higher levels of sport, the mental component, which previously at early stages is almost not important at all, becomes the dominant component. And there's no sport that's more evident than in golf. Unlike other sports, golf's just a one that there's a lot of downtime. You actually only make 70 swings in a day of golf, but that happens over 5 hours, and each swing is 1 second, and there's this time that goes around it, and so it's a lot of time to think. There's a lot of time to sabotage yourself, and a lot of times to let self-doubt creep in and get anxious and get ahead of yourself. And so that's kind of, I think, where these four components and understanding how they all interact with each other, but this emphasis on the mental component came from is dealing with the high level of sport in college athletics, but then also in the golf space, that mental component really speaks loud and clear.
I love that. I think it's really, really inspiring to hear you talk about how it can be very daunting and create a lot of anxiety around just the planning of like even just the swing. It's such a calculated sport, and I find that really fascinating. But I'm very inspired to hear just your story of how you brought it all together. And it's a fascinating idea, which actually led you to winning the Top Idea Prize at the Venture Connections ceremony. Congratulations on that.
Thank you very much.
I want to know about your experience with that. Venture Prize is one of the biggest things that Chang Institute brings together every year. Where did that come from, and what brought you to winning the Top Idea Prize?
For sure. Actually, it stems a lot kind of from the original kind of how One Iota came together, right? So I think in 2020 and COVID summer, I think that was a summer where, everybody obviously was trying to figure out how to deal with COVID, and you're spending a lot of time indoors on your own. And for me, that was hey, I'm only taking 3 classes or so, and why don't I explore learning a new skill that's, I wanted to learn how to build a website. And
nice.
So that was kind of just, I started from scratch. I had no idea. I had a coding background, obviously, from school, and but literally just went online. I think I remember I got a video buried somewhere on my phone or computer of me getting a drop-down menu to work. I think it was probably like 3 or 4 weeks into learning how to build a website. And I had a drop-down menu to open. I was so excited. But that was kind of what that summer was. It was just building. So by the end of that summer, I think from May through end of August, I'd built a functioning stats tracking application. So I was able to enter my own stats for golf and track and just see the analytics for it. And that kind of project stemmed from just being a very analytical person, being goal driven, and also just wanting a project to actually go and learn something. I think that's the most valuable way to actually go and learn a new skill is you actually have some goal that you're working towards. And so to get more to the point of the question, I guess, was that original kind of, I just wanted to build a stats tracking application. I'd mentioned to what turned out to be my co-founders that I had this idea, and they'd been exploring a similar thing around like these other components of performance, right? So how can we incorporate the mental component or the physical component into kind of training and measuring that? And so we kind of saw this natural synergy between those two things, and can we actually make this holistic platform that actually tracks all of those pieces? And so we kind of had started this with this idea, but they had full-time jobs. I was a student athlete, and staying busy with everything that's involved with that. And so it was kind of something that we'd worked towards, but it wasn't, super full-time in any sense. And I think that 2022 spring, we actually brought on a co-op student to help kind of with development of the platform. And
for your own?
For One Iota. Yeah,
wow.
So we kind of evolved to a point kind of through that over the next year and a half or so, we'd made some progress on the platform and kind of known that this was something we wanted to kind of take and build into an actual product and sell. So we'd incorporated the company at that time, and we'd brought on a co-op student to just kind of explore and just kind of continue developing. And we were kind of like, had a co-op student on, but hadn't really done all of like the proper business stuff, like the stuff you kind of learn like Business 100 around. You have your marketing plan, you have your finances, and what's your size, and how you're going to actually approach the market and find product market fit. And so we had seen this Venture Prize kind of thing pop up, and some promotions, like, hey, this is a good idea. Like, I think we should kind of explore doing this, because it just kind of would force us to kind of go through all of those experiences. And so we'd actually started the application and then didn't complete it, just kind of got tied up with other stuff. And I think the Chang Institute actually reached out to us and said, hey, did you guys want to complete the application? Like, looks like a cool idea. Like, you guys should continue with it. So we're like, you know what, fine, let's do it. So we completed the application, just kind of forced us to actually like stop and like think through all the things that we'd previously kind of tossed out, just kind of like loosely, and write them down. And it was a really, really valuable exercise for us. And obviously we ended up just finding success with that idea and kind of taking it all the way through to win the idea stream of that competition. But that's kind of where that all happened, was literally just kind of us, hey, this would kind of force us to go through these kind of tougher decisions, and it worked out pretty well for us. So that's really where like a lot of ideas really come about, is when you sit down and really just like write down everything that you have in your mind, like especially for the application, because I know there's a lot that you have to put in there. For sure. Oh yeah.
And that just in and of itself probably created like ideas as like, oh, I can take this in so many different directions.
For sure.
So that being said, you made mention that you didn't know much about like the marketing, the business 100. Let's say it like that. And as an engineering student, I'm curious to know what brought entrepreneurship onto your plate.
For sure. And actually, it's interesting. I've expressed this to my roommates that I had kind of over the past year or so. It's just like, and I've probably changed this mindset a little bit recently, but I don't feel like I'd ever identified around like the entrepreneurial kind of classification. I think the way that I looked at it was very much more, I was an engineer and I liked looking at problems and solving problems. And that was entirely just the way that I approached this kind of project. It was just, here's a problem that I want to solve, and I'm going to go about and do that piece. And I think that's the way that engineers are taught to explore, is look for problems and go solve those. And for better or for worse, that works out in some situations. So like a lot of those kind of pieces around marketing or business and finance, they just had no idea about those, but just had to go figure those out. But that's just another problem to approach.
Yeah, and that's something that we teach at the Chang Institute, is that if you've recognized a problem and you are interested in solving it, that in and of itself is entrepreneurship. When you're passionate for something and you want to build something up, especially One Iota Performance, that is an entrepreneurial endeavor. And I think that's a great way for you to sort of land in the entrepreneurship space.
Yeah.
What is that sound? Ryan, this is not planned. You don't know any of this. You don't know what's about to happen.
I do not know what's about to happen.
So this is a segment on our podcast called the Mindset Matters Minute.
Okay.
It happens every single episode. And what we do, this is a great segue actually. Speaking about the entrepreneurial mindset, sponsored by the Charles Chang Institute for Entrepreneurship, we have chosen, there's 12 of them, 12 attributes that sort of outline what an entrepreneur is. And we very carefully selected a entrepreneurial mindset attribute for you, and you have 1 minute to define it as yourself. So provide a story, whatever the textbook definition is to you. Just go ahead and dive deep into it for a whole minute. Ryan, are you ready for your Mindset Matters Minute word?
I'm ready.
Your word, it's 2 words. Your attribute is personal agency.
Okay. Am I right away? Okay. So to me, personal agency is really about the idea that you are in control of what you get to decide. And I think that speaks a lot to, part of the time I've spent at SFU is around, working with a psychologist or kind of someone like a mental performance coach who really helps with understanding what's important to you. It's one of those pieces with One Iota that's kind of important too, is one of the things that I care a lot about is this idea of control. And I think for me, there's so many things that you can't control, especially within this entrepreneurial journey. But what you're doing and kind of the control that you have over yourself is one of those things that you can. And I think, living in a world of a ton of uncertainty, that was fast.
It's very fast. You can keep going.
A ton of uncertainty, and the thing that you need to be aware of is just the agency that you have over yourself and taking control of that piece. And whatever else happens, you can deal with that.
I'm really pulled to the ambiguity side of things that you just sort of explained. Like the world is always changing, and how can you really take control of those changes in the moment?
Yeah, I think that's one of the pieces in kind of going through the co-op program here at SFU is, got to kind of work full time on my venture and explore all the things that involved with running a business. And one of those things that was kind of huge, and I think I wrote it down in kind of my year-end presentation, was this idea of like living with ambiguity. And that was one of the biggest things that I'd learned early on was like, you never have complete information. You are always living and trying to make decisions around basic guesses that you're making, right? And you can try to get as much information as you can, but at the end of the day, you don't, right? And I've only taken one kind of business-related course, and it was actually Econ 103. It was a microeconomics course. Loved the course, but all of the foundations in the course are based on this idea that you have perfect information, right? In which you very quickly realize is obviously not the case in the real world, right? And there's always this ambiguity and this unknown component that you have to deal with. But that's one of the kind of things that makes it fun. If you had perfect information, then it would be easy. It would be like playing chess, where there is a right answer, but it's not.
And I can imagine going through like your co-op term, to which you extended a little bit longer.
I did.
You've been with us for quite some time, and it's been a pleasure. I guess you probably learned very early on in your co-op term that things do change. When you're able to focus on something full time, you gain a lot of information about something. Do you have any particular moments that were pivotal to your experience in developing One Iota Performance during the co-op term and how you sort of navigated that?
I'd say, that's a good question, in terms of like specific moments, I'd say that the things that I've learned, you kind of learn over time, right? They're not necessarily things that jump out as, I think I look at like a situation like school or golf or, sport in general, it's like there are like specific moments that really like connect with you and you're forced in that moment to deal with whatever's going on. But I felt like more in like the business context and, related to One Iota is like, that learning process is spread out over time a bit more. It's not quite as rapid. And it's not that it's the piece we're talking about. One of the things that I learned over time was like, how do you actually manage working with people and actually help them understand what you're asking them to do and what the expectations are and just work as a manager essentially, right? And so when you're in school, it's not something you ever get experience with, but having co-ops on, you kind of get thrown into the deep end with that and have to figure it out really quickly. And so that was something that you learned over time, kind of what works and what doesn't. And there wasn't like a moment for that, right? It was just, watching the slow burn of me asking something to happen and then it, not working out the way that I was hoping to. And it's like, okay, well, chances are it wasn't very clear.
In terms of personal agency, during, I guess, your experience, not even just related to co-op, but it can be anything that you've done in the Venture Connection stream, because there's quite the range of items going on in the entrepreneurial ecosystem at SFU. Have you learned anything about that agency taking control of anything?
Most recently, I'd say kind of since I've kind of graduated and been finished with the co-op program, and I am in complete control of how I spend my time, right? And I think when you're a student at SFU, especially as a student anywhere, but a student athlete at SFU, is a lot of your schedule is dictated for you, right? You have workouts in the morning at these times, you have practice at these times, you have classes at the other times, and you just kind of, there's all sorts of other things you have to do, but you just kind of fit those in around, right? And there isn't really a lot of decision making that has to happen around when that's going to happen, because it's just whatever time you have available left. Whereas now it's like I just have a blank slate. Like I can look at my calendar and it's just, there's a couple meetings that I've scheduled in, but for the most part, I just have to decide how I'm going to spend that time. And I'm entirely on my own with that and in control of it. And I think that's different and new and nice in some ways as well. Probably one of the things that kind of learned to deal with over the last little bit.
And I can imagine that's probably pretty scary to just be thrown into that, being like, all right, you're done with everything. There's no more planning on our end. Here, we're going to hand everything over to you. I've experienced that before, just like graduating high school, coming into SFU a few years ago. There's so much that's just taken away from you in terms of scheduling. And then coming into, as you're going more into your adult life, a lot of that is navigating yourself. I guess I sort of have a question about if you have any advice to give to anybody who might be approaching that stage in their life where they have to make big decisions on their own, for our audience who might be in that space right now.
Use a calendar. It's the one thing that and I think it's weird as it is. Like I am someone who's, I think I started using a calendar like more religiously in probably my 2019 or so. So part of the experience I had at SFU that haven't really touched on at all was I was actually the president of this student athlete committee, where we basically represented student athletes to the school and basically ran events for them, just kind of build community within the student athlete group. And there was a lot of moving parts related to that, right? And I think lots of meetings, emails to keep up with, and events to keep track of. And so I think that was kind of the time where I was like, holy, I kind of need a calendar to like keep track of all of these things, right? Because it got to the point where I couldn't really keep it in my mind anymore. And now I'm kind of in this space where it's the exact opposite, right? I can keep everything I'm doing in my mind because it's pretty basic, right? There's kind of one core responsibility that I have, but this idea around kind of keeping a calendar has just forced me, like every Sunday I'll sit down and I'll say, okay, what's going on in the week ahead? And I'm just going to plan it out. And that's, what I do in my mornings. It's when I'm eating lunch. It's when I'm, golfing and training. And I think that kind of just helps me maintain this kind of sense of structure that's completely made up, but it still kind of gives me the sense of structure that I've gotten so used to and actually enjoy, and keeps me kind of honest with those things rather than just, I don't have a lot of things, I'm just going to let myself figure it all out, because that's a kind of dangerous path to go down, I think. And when you end up just, I can do that tomorrow, or I can, lie in bed for another hour, and all of a sudden you're way behind on all the deadlines that you had that weren't actually super pressing at the time.
And it's also that sense of accountability and holding yourself accountable to what you've written down on the calendar. Once you see things scheduled and written down for yourself, it's easier to actually take action on those things instead of mentally being like, oh yeah, I can piece that in at another time, but it's conflicting with this other thing that you're not thinking about. But having it concretely in front of you, it's invaluable.
Absolutely.
It really is invaluable. I'm just wary of our time. We're starting to run out of it, unfortunately. What's next for you? Do you have any future ambitions that you're thinking about or are interested in taking on?
For sure. I think, one of the things that I talked about, for me, one of the core things that's important for me kind of moving forward long-term in my life is I want to do something that's actually going to have an impact on somebody or multiple people. And that can come in any number of ways, right? There's so many ways to make an impact, right? And hopefully that impact's positive. It's kind of the goal.
Oh yeah, for sure.
But the idea around One Iota kind of from a golf perspective is that wasn't necessarily, it's not an impact that I was happy to dedicate a career to. That was kind of more of a starting point for me. I think some of the most recent discussions we've had around One Iota and kind of where we're kind of looking long-term are kind of fitting into more of that vision of how can we have more of an impact on people, outside of just this idea around sport, to lots of other domains as well, and kind of growing into a company and kind of expanding ourselves to something that I can see myself doing as a career. So that's probably the direction that we're headed, and obviously lots of details to sort out with what that looks like and actually go and execute it, but certainly an exciting time for all of those discussions.
Yeah, I'm excited to hear where it goes.
For sure.
I'm really excited. Yeah, I think you're on a great track right now.
Thank you.
And I'm really looking forward to see where One Iota goes and all of your future ambitions as well.
Appreciate it.
Yeah. And Ryan, thank you so much for being here on the Inspiration Station podcast today. We're very grateful for your insights and your wonderful stories.
Thank you.
How can our listeners find you?
You can find me on LinkedIn and Instagram and Twitter. I think I'm at R Stolys on Instagram and at Ryan Stolys on Twitter, because someone hacked my R Stolys account back a decade or so ago, so we added the Y. And then on LinkedIn, just Ryan Stolys, and our One Iota Performance website and LinkedIn is connected to those things as well. So don't try to make myself hard to find, but if you Google my name, you'll find one of those.
Go check him out, you guys. Go check him out. He's doing great things.
Thanks so much. Appreciate being on here today.
Thank you for being here as well. And we will see you next time on the Inspiration Station podcast. Thank you for listening.